As part of our Olympic watch here on 11:16 SEN as we count down towards London 2012, time to look at the sport of rowing and have a chat to the very talented Kim Crowe, a talented member of a very talented family. Of course, Essendon, St Kilda and Footscray fans would remember her father well. Played 130-odd games for the Bombers, won a best and fairest of the Saints, and went to Footscray as well. But she's a talented sportsman in her own right. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Now, we'll kick things off with your partnership with Kerry Hoare at the moment in the double sculls. So how did that come about?
Pretty much with our sport, they work pretty hard to put together combinations that they think will go fast and have the best chances of success. And Kerry and I have been rowing together for 2 years now, and it's actually a good combination because you have the combination of Kerry, who has a lot of experience in the sport. She's an Olympic medalist already, and I'm a lot newer to the sport, but bring a bit of raw energy. And I think as a combination, we'll actually be one of the crews to beat out there on the weekend.
Talk about being new to the sport. You were a talented runner. You broke your foot quite badly, as I understand it, 8 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened with that? Because as I said, with the talented runner, I think you came second to Jana Pittman in the 400 hurdles. You really had a bright future in that regard. What happened with that injury?
Yeah, well, hurdling was my love, and that was my main sport, what I always thought I'd do. And I had a series of navicular stress fractures, and surgery wasn't all that successful, and I was advised that it was very unlikely that I'd be able to run properly or run at the top level. So I took a break from athletics, and when I was doing my rehab, a couple of rowing coaches spotted me playing on the ergo. Found myself in a rowing boat, and I loved the sport. I loved the people. I loved just having something else to do. And after a little while, I realised I was okay at it. So I've been pretty lucky.
Did it take some convincing, even convincing yourself in that regard? You went from obviously saying running and hurdling was your life. You mentioned that you'd found something that you enjoyed doing in rowing. Did you believe reasonably quickly that you could make something out of it, or was it a case of just enjoying the moment and then eventually a few people started to suggest you could go a long way?
Initially it was just because I loved the sport, and I sort of really enjoyed the team aspect of it, which I hadn't really had that much of in track and field. Yeah. But I think a bit of my journey was just how naive I was to how inexperienced I was in the boat. I went to my first selection trials 6 months after starting rowing, and I look back now and I sort of can't believe I was like this, but I saw no reason why I couldn't win. Now I look at it and go, gee, how on earth did you think that? But because I was so sort of naive and so confident, it all happened pretty quickly. And I think because I knew how to train and I was pretty determined to make things work because of the disappointments I'd had with athletics, that it was sort of like a bull at a gate, and any opportunity, I wanted to take that opportunity. And so pretty quickly I realised that this could be my second chance.
You finished runner-up in the quad scull on the weekend, the Henley Royal Regatta. How did you assess your form there?
Henley was actually fantastic. We raced the quad with the lightweight double scull. So it was a bit of a throw together combination because there is no women's double at the Henley Regatta. So we just jumped in that boat and had a race, and we didn't think we'd get past the first round, and so to get through the first round and then win our semi and knock off the top American crew, make it through the final stage, we were actually ecstatic with that performance and had some really good races, and learn a lot from the little girls, and I think they enjoyed rowing with us too. And it was it was a really enjoyable way to kickstart the European campaign. And I guess this weekend is the more serious end of it. But yeah, a good way to blow out the cobwebs.
So how does your week work leading up to something like this? As you mentioned, you're into the double scull, the World Cup 3 in Switzerland. Is there a large recovery component, or are you straight back into ramping things up during the week? How does, I guess, when you've got a 1 week turnaround between events like this?
Yeah, it's pretty tricky finding the right balance because since we did race right through to finals day, we were still pretty knackered come Monday, Tuesday here. So a bit of that was getting back in the double, getting used to the speed of the boat, getting a few technical things down, but also allowing us to recover. The whole team did some race work this morning, so that was a bit of fine-tuning and getting ready for Lucerne. I guess in some ways we want to keep things moving because although this regatta is really important, our big regatta is the World Championships in a couple of months' time. So we don't want to let everything go too much at this stage of the season. But I think come Friday when we start racing, we will be quite fresh and ready to go.
So it's the top 8, I think you need to finish it in the World Champs. Is that right? Who are your biggest competitors, I guess, firstly? And second of all, in terms of the way you're tracking along at the moment, do you feel with your times and your speeds at the moment that that's something that you'd be achieving right now?
Yeah, look, our biggest competitors, it's definitely Great Britain. They've led the field in this event for the past year or so and are the dominant crew. But we've got 28 entries in the double scull here, and there are some returning medalists from Ukraine, from Belarus, from China. The Poles who won in 2009 are back. So it's actually, I'd say, but it's a stacked field. Fortunately, we're going really fast. We can really compare ourselves against the other Australian crews at the moment, but comparatively, we're tracking really well. So we are quite confident going into the weekend, and it will be a good gauge to see exactly where we're at and how much we've got to go to achieve that goal of winning this year.
Now, just a couple before we let you go, I've read a little bit about your profile, and you've got a pretty impressive CV outside of sport. I could just fill the listeners in, I guess, in regards to at the moment what you do outside of sport. Yeah,
I work as a lawyer at a small law firm in Canberra. I'm very fortunate in that my boss is Sean Crichton, a former Olympian, so he is wonderful in terms of allowing me to come and go from training and allowing me to work from overseas and wherever I may be at that time. But it's actually something that I love to have to do. I love the work, but it's also nice to have something that's not rowing. It can be a pretty intense sport, and it can be a pretty stressful sport at times, and as with any sport can be. So having not only a steady income, but something else to be passionate about and to really enjoy has been fantastic over the past couple of years.
Now, you've dabbled in a little bit of media as well, as I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah, when I went through my uni degree, I did a double degree of media and communications and law, and I do love to write. I, for a while, wrote for Backpage Lead and for The Age. I haven't done too much of late, mainly because I'm really happy with my law job at the moment. But it is something that really does interest me, and I follow very closely particularly the AFL news and the news coming out of Melbourne, and sort of have a finger on the pulse. And one day when time permits, I would like to get back into that area, because I guess that's where the passion is. I'm a very sporting family. Our dinner conversations are just arguments about the sport of that week. So it is something that I'm very interested in.
Now, your father obviously played for 3 clubs, but primarily for Essendon. Is that where your allegiance lies? I think your brother was Collingwood. Is that right? Was on Collingwood's list?
Yeah, my allegiance is definitely with Essendon, and that has been increased recently because my brother is now working at Essendon as the rehabilitation coach. So a few of us were very excited to watch the live score updates last week, just before we were about to go and row at Henley, and we were a bit inspired by the underdogs Essendon getting up over Geelong, and and so we went out there all fired up, trying to emulate emulate those Bombers. But it's pretty tricky sometimes when you're away to follow the AFL. We certainly can't see any games, but it is something that I guess brings our team together. There's a whole lot of the northern staters out there at the moment following the state of origin. So it's a nice little thing to follow a few other sports and take a keen interest.
And just finally, speaking of other sports, I did read with interest a while ago this article, but I couldn't remember who had written it. Then I was doing a little bit of research and came across it again. I think you wrote an article in regards to, I guess, in preparation for Olympic Games and at lower level sports that for women coming through, I guess, without the distractions of AFL and these sorts of things as well, sometimes it's a little bit of a leg up, or it's easier for them to establish themselves in Olympic disciplines without, I guess, those sorts of distractions. Do you still feel as if that is the case at the moment?
Well, I mean, our men's rowing team's actually doing fantastically at the moment. But you do look at some of the dominant rowing countries, and you look at some of the AFL players, and they are ideally built for rowing. And it's going to be pretty difficult for a sport like rowing to attract the cream of the physical crop coming through. So I still do think that we could perhaps be even better with the men if we had a few more people to pick from. But having said that, we do have a number of rowers who have actually chosen rowing over AFL. Cameron McKenzie-McCarg was listed with the Western Bulldogs. Yeah. David Crawshay comes from a footballing family, and they've both done really well in rowing. But I guess for women, there are less choices. If you're not a keen netballer, it's a lot easier to choose an Olympic class sport, and for those sports to have access to the best of, I hate to use this term, but physical specimens.
I think you're right. I think it's very well said, very well researched as well. Kim, we thank you very much for your time. Good luck on the weekend. Good luck with everything going forward. Hopefully we can speak to you between now and London next year.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.